Thanks for joining us today for our webcast. We have a special guest, Sandeep Singh, the CEO and President of Western Copper and Gold. Hi, Sandeep.
Hi, Sunny. How are you?
Good, thanks. So we have a few questions to go through, and I think, Jeff, if you want to just start.
Sure. So, Sandeep, gold's had quite the year, and I certainly wasn't expecting the run-up. When many people think of Western Copper, they normally think the copper side, but you're quite exposed to gold too. Can you talk about how what percentage that comprises your resource, and what you think about the run-up in gold prices so far this year?
Sure, happy to. Look, I would start off by saying that the three of us have often talked about how you've heard me say a number of times how unique our commodity mix is, how special it is. When most people think of us, they do think of us as a critical minerals story because of the copper and the molybdenum, but there's an awful lot of gold there. And with the run up in gold prices this past year, 18 months, it's almost equal parts today gold and base metals, depending on what prices you use. So we're benefiting from the gold move now, and that gold move has been significant. And then certainly expect the copper side to kick in. Already in the last couple of weeks, there's been a little bit of more health on the copper side, but I think it's pales in comparison to what we're going to start to see as the supply demand dynamics really kick in. So gold now, copper later. Just a really good mix where we're always benefiting typically from one side of our portfolio or the other. That's the beauty of the uncorrelated nature of those metals. And then sometimes they move up together, but very rarely do they move down together. So it's a pretty nice place to be. In terms of the gold price move, look, we've got an environment where everyone, government, individuals are carrying too much debt. The U.S. debt is at 38 trillion and rising. They've been closed. The government's been closed for about a month. There's a massive global tariff war going on. Meanwhile, inflation is stubborn, unemployment is still high or rising. Kind of everything you need, frankly, for gold to be doing well, sadly, means the rest of the economy doing poorly. And so I think that kind of low growth, higher unemployment, stagflationary environment is frankly kind of the best outlook for gold. It's the best backdrop for gold, I should say. And you add to that another layer of just de-dollarization, people wanting to buffer themselves, hedge themselves against the US dollar, countries, central banks buying more gold, buying Bitcoin or investing in Bitcoin, whatever it may be. So you take all those things together, like I said, a bit of a perfect storm for gold. The last $1,000 move in gold, really special impact on our project economics. And as I said, I expect the copper price to be next. So it's a really good backdrop to be in.
Yeah. Rio Tinto and Mitsubishi have been players in this project. Have there been any changes lately?
Yeah, I guess it depends how you define lately, but both very supportive, have been great equity partners in the company. Rio Tinto with us since 2021. I've done 5 separate investments into the company. Mitsubishi Materials since spring of 2023. I guess and again, both very supportive, both on our technical and sustainability committee. So have lent us tremendous technical support. Some of the best experts, subject matter experts in the world that we probably as a junior company, or we could remove probably, we couldn't replicate or pay for in our own entity. So that's been great. More recently, if you will, we extended our rights agreements with each of them separately. Made perfect sense to do. We want to kind of keep them close. They're very helpful. So Rio Tinto remains on our technical committee as we go through our environmental assessment phase that we're in now, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and Mitsubishi as well. And with Mitsubishi in late May, we actually got them to go into the market and buy some shares. So they bought 2 million shares in the market. So not dilutive, not new issuance, but went in and mopped up some shares in the market, took their ownership from 4 to 5%. So that quite unusual for them, given that the investment they have with us is the first time they've ever invested in the company. That's a pretty well laid path of big company investing in small company, but actually going to market and buying shares quite rare, especially for them. So I think they continue to show, both of them, their collective support of the project.
Yeah. Now the project's not yet permitted, but you just submitted the very copious ESE. Can you talk about, first of all, how many pages was it, and what's the timeline looking like?
Yeah, look, it's a big document. Pages might stun you, but I think in all, it was about 23,000 pages. The submission, most of that appendices, but even the body of it, quite intense. Huge achievement for our team. This has been work that's been ongoing for years now, but really the last year and a half intensely since I came in. The team was full throttle on this, not just our team, but all the consultants they were managing. So really important body work. And I would say, certainly in the Yukon, the most amount of science and data, put into this submission, this project, than anything they've seen. Which makes sense. This is the biggest project the Yukon has contemplated. It can have a massively positive impact on the Yukon for generations, and at par or better than anything that's been done in Canada. So very proud of that process. It now kicks off our panel process in the Yukon. So that will be a reasonably lengthy process, again, as it should be. We've got to go back and forth with the regulator and our affected First Nations and walk them through what the project means. It'll take them some time to digest that big body of work. Importantly, though, we've been going back and forth with some of our affected First Nations for over a year. Sending them chapters, receiving their comments and input, doing our best to incorporate it. Still, that doesn't mean we're done with them. It just means we front end loaded a year of work that for most people they would be starting now. I think we quite rightly and smartly front ended that. So I think we're in a good position, and look forward to kicking off that whole process in the new year.
Okay. Can you talk about the stock valuation relative to the net asset value? Where is it today, and where do you think it can get as the panel process progresses?
Sure. So look, we've had a nice little move here in the fall. I would say late summer, fall. The stock kind of came off the floor that it was trading on. Still dwarfed, I would say, by the underlying value in the project. If you look at us versus our copper peers, we're all up about the same amount this year. But as we talked about at the start, half our project's gold, and gold's been on an absolute tear. So arguably we should be up higher. So when you look at the underlying NAV, and I'll let you decide, on our website and our IR presentation, we show a sensitivity table so people can decide their own outlook for gold and copper long term. But if you start using higher, not spot, but higher long-term prices for gold north of 3,000, you start using 450 for copper or higher, which I think is the going rate for people building mines. There is a $7-8 billion Canadian project on an NPV basis, phenomenal IRRs, and about a 2-year payback. So pick your number. We're trading at a fraction of that, kind of sub 10% of those values today. Where can we get to through execution? And execution means de-risking on the permitting side, continuing to optimize, continuing to consult with our First Nation, and ultimately entering into agreements with them. All the stuff we're doing at the moment, and we'll continue to do in earnest in 2026. With that in hand, we can trade much closer to NAV. That there are precedents for that in Canada, where you trade at low valuations going through permitting, but when you start to show that you're coming out the other end, you can trade on the upper end of that NAV fraction. So huge amount of uplift for executing, and importantly, without really having to change anything on the project. We don't need higher commodity prices, although we expect them to continue to float higher. We don't need to find more resources. We already have resources for decades, although we expect to be able to find more. There's nothing in the technology side that's not standard. So just simple execution going forward. The project simple, the execution going forward unlocks a lot of value.
Mm.
Okay.
What does it look like for the company for, I guess, the next 12 months?
Sure, it's a good question. So like I said, the first phase with YESAB, our regulator, is they just need to understand that we've submitted everything we were meant to. So that will take them into Q1. They'll form a panel. That panel will then go a little bit quieter because they have to then digest the technical merits and start asking us the questions. So 2026 will be a year of back and forth with our regulator, getting their questions, starting to prepare the answers to those submissions. And then 2027 will probably be when the panel hearings start in earnest. That said, we already kind of know where we're going to get questions, just different levels of details based on past precedent, and the interaction we've been having with our affected First Nations. There's answers to questions we've already provided. There are questions where we said we would provide those answers within the actual process. So we're not sitting by. We're starting to work on that background as we speak. As I said, we'll continue to work with our affected First Nations and try to enter into typical IBAs, impact benefit agreements with them as well. So that's what 2026 looks like for us.
Great.
All right. Well, we should disclose too that Sunny and I are both personal shareholders of your company, and our clients are as well. So thanks very much for joining us. Keep up the good work, and we're quite happy with the stock price as of late, that's for sure.
Yeah, look, I appreciate your support, Jeff and Sunny. Always happy to be chatting with you. So thanks again, and have a great day.
Thanks, Sandeep.